This clause shifts the liability. If you sign this, sir, your company takes the hit. The boardroom froze. Maya Williams' voice hung in the air like a suspended blade, seconds from falling. 16 years old, standing just inside the glass doors of the 27th floor conference room, wearing borrowed sneakers and a janitor's badge. She pointed directly at the contract Jackson Hale was about to sign. Jackson's pen paused midair. His silver eyebrows knit together. His wife, Clara Hale, blinked, startled. Derek Vaughn, the slick Texan businessman across the table with his polished grin, let out a strained chuckle. "Excuse me?" he said smoothly, his voice too even too. "Be natural." "I read the clause on page 14, Maya said, her tone steady. "It pushes all merger-related liabilities onto Hale Investments. If there's fraud, lawsuits, defaults, your company carries the full weight." Vaughn's firm walks away untouched. Round the table, young executives shot uneasy looks at each other. One man tugged the document closer, scanning hurriedly. Another tapped a tablet, fingers flying as he pulled up the page. "She shouldn't even be here," someone muttered. "She's the janitor's kid." Maya didn't waver. Just 8 hours ago, life was simpler. The cleaning crew moved like clockwork through the upper floors of Hale Investments. Maya, in a faded hoodie with a visitor maintenance lanyard, shredded old documents and wiped glass panels while her mother vacuumed down the hall. No noise, no questions, just work and leave, till she saw the folder. It was sitting in the copier tray, stamped final draft. Merger agreement. Something about it tugged at her, not curiosity exactly, but instinct. Maya wasn't like most kids her age. She didn't scroll endlessly on her phone. She read corporate manuals, watched business documentaries with her grandfather, and had once written a school essay called How Enron Fell. She opened the folder carefully, her eyes skimming the dense legal language, and then she saw it's a paragraph. See line 3 of the liability section. Subtle but devastating. If the deal failed or lawsuits surfaced later, Hale Investments, not Vaughn Global, shoulder the legal and financial ruin. It was a trap, Mom, she whispered, rushing down the hallway. Have you ever seen a contract that basically hands over a whole company? Denise didn't even glance up from polishing the glass wall. Maya, don't mess with their stuff. You want us both fired? Maya bit her lip and said nothing. But her mind kept spinning. Now in the present, silence gripped the boardroom. Clara's grip tightened on the armrest. Vaughn's grin faltered. Jackson Hale's eyes bore into Maya. Slowly, he set his pen down. You're saying this clause flips the liability? His voice was calm to calm. Yes, sir. Maya nodded. It's cloaked in legal jargon, but if your team didn't parse every line, it's meant to slip by unnoticed. It doesn't shield your company, it sets you up to fall. Clara's voice sliced through like ice. Jackson, this is absurd. She's a child. But Jackson wasn't looking at his wife anymore. His gaze dropped to the papers. He flipped to page 14, scanned, and his jaw tightened. Are we seriously entertaining theories from someone who wipes doorknobs for a living? Derek Vaughn sneered. Maya's cheeks flushed hot, but her voice didn't falter. You can laugh all you want, but if he signs that page, your company's name will be on every lawsuit that follows. The pause was long, tense. Jackson's voice broke it, low and firm. Escort her out. Security moved in. Maya stood tall as they led her toward the door. Just before it shut behind her, she turned back and met Jackson's eyes. For a heartbeat, he didn't see the janitor's daughter. He saw the warning she had tried to give, the mistake he had almost signed. His pen never touched the paper. The next morning, Hale Investments felt different. Not calm-tight. Uneasy, words unspoken. Maya sat in the lobby's security office. Chin high, hands clasped tightly in her lap, heart pounding. The marble floors reflected the cold winter light streaming through towering windows. She'd been waiting over an hour. No one spoke to her. No one offered water. No one said what was coming. Beside her, Denise sat rigid, her face unreadable. She hadn't spoken since they were pulled from the night shift and told to wait downstairs. but the fear in her eyes said everything. "I'm sorry, Mom," Maya whispered. Denise turned slowly, her voice flat. "You should be. I cleaned this building to keep food on the table, not so you can waltz into boardrooms like you run the place." "I didn't mean to embarrass you," Maya murmured. "But I saw something dangerous. I couldn't stay quiet." Denise sighed, softer now. "I raised you to be brave, Maya, not reckless." Before Maya could respond, the door opened. A stern HR woman strode in, heels clacking against tile, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Williams," she said curtly, not sparing Maya. A glance. "You're on leave, pending review. We'll call you." Denise's mouth tightened into a hard line. She stood, gripping Maya's arm. "Let's go." As they stepped into the frigid Chicago air, Maya turned back for one last look at the gleaming tower of glass and steel. The place where she'd thought she could make a difference. She wasn't even allowed inside. 30 floors above, Jackson Hale sat alone in his private office. The unsigned contract lay spread across his desk like evidence at a crime scene. His finger traced the clause Maya had pointed out. So paragraph C, line 3. She was right. Language wasn't just tricky, it was predatory. Disguised as boilerplate, but designed to dump all liability onto Hale Investments. How the hell? Did I miss this? Clara's voice echoed in his mind from the night before. "It's a standard clause, Jackson. Trust me, trust." That word had once meant something. He opened his laptop, cross-referencing Von Global's other deals. Legal language, shell companies, offshore accounts, too clean, too deliberate. His phone buzzed. Clara's name flashed on. "The screen. You didn't sign it, did you?" she said, her tone light but tight. "No." His voice was flat. "You're overthinking," Clara said smoothly. "We vetted Derek's firm. You're letting that girl get in your head." She saw what none of us did. Clara let out a soft, brittle laugh. "She's 16, Jackson, the janitor's kid. You're really questioning me over a child." Jackson didn't respond. "I'm coming up," Clara said, ending the call. A few blocks away, Maya sat curled on her couch, a mug of cocoa cooling in her hands. The apartment was small but cozy, filled with the soft clutter of a life in motion. Across from her, her mother scrolled through job listings, the faint click of keys breaking the silence. "Do you regret it?" Maya asked quietly. Denise let out a long sigh. "I regret that you stopped believing grown-ups would do their jobs." Maya didn't argue, but deep down, she felt she hadn't been wrong. A chime broke the stillness on email notification. "Hey!" Sender's name was unfamiliar. Robert Barnes. Maya subject line. "You saw it too?" Maya's eyes widened. She clicked. The message was brief. "I used to work there. I know what you found. If you're willing to talk, I'll listen." Her fingers hovered over the keys. Then, with a deep breath, she started typing. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone. That evening, Jackson unlocked his safe and pulled out an old file labeled Hale. Internal Barnes Review. Inside were pages of flagged risks, suppressed audits, and reports the board had dismissed 2 years prior. On one sheet, a note scrawled in red ink caught his eye. "Risk exposure decentralized. One signature trap, and we're finished." Signed, Robert Barnes. Jackson leaned back, closed his eyes, and felt something unfamiliar creep in doubt. Clara Hale had never been one for waiting. She swept into Jackson's office with the poised confidence of someone unaccustomed to hearing. No. Her heels clicked sharply on the oak floor as she approached his sleek black desk. Jackson sat unmoving, his gaze fixed on the contract before him. "It's still there," Clara said, folding her arms. "You've had all day." "I'll need more," Jackson replied without looking up. Clara's smile faltered. "This deal is time-sensitive. Derek's offering terms no one else would even consider. You saw the numbers?" "I also saw a liability clause that almost gutted my company," Jackson said evenly. Clara circled the desk, her manicured nail trailing. "The edge of the contract. One clause. Legalese. You know how these things work. Don't tell me you're giving weight to a janitor's daughter over your own wife." That made him raise his eyes slowly. She saw it, he said. No one else did? Not you? Not? Legal. Not even me. A tense pause followed. Clara's expression didn't waver, but her voice cooled. She's a child, Jackson. And she's made you question everything that should worry you. No, Jackson said as he rose from his chair. What worries me is that she was right. Meanwhile, Maya huddled near the radiator at home, scrolling through encrypted PDFs. Barnes had sent earlier tax documents, shell company networks, merger language comparisons. She didn't understand it all, but enough of it was clear. They were laying a trap. Barnes had confirmed it on their call. Derek Vaughn had used nearly an identical merger language in Houston years ago. The target company had assumed full liability. Within 6 months, it collapsed under the weight of legal fees. Vaughn walked away richer. Maya highlighted terms: indemnification, contingent liability, burden of performance. She didn't know every term's nuance, but she knew corruption. When she saw it, I can't believe he's married to that woman, Maya muttered. Her mother, rinsing dishes, gave a humorless snort. Power marries ambition, always has. At that same moment, Jackson sat alone at the bar in the private, gold lounge overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline. He wasn't drinking. He was watching. Through frosted glass at a nearby table, he saw Clara seated across from Derek Vaughn. They were laughing, her hand resting lightly on Vaughn's wrist. His grin was wide and unguarded, the kind you shared with old friends or something more. Jackson's jaw tightened. Clara leaned closer. Vaughn nodded and discreetly passed her a small flash drive, his fingers brushing hers in a gesture far from professional. Jackson turned away, bile rising. Was this the woman he had built his life with, or had she been using him all along? Back in her apartment, Maya's phone buzzed. Text from Barnes. Look into Clara's spending. 3 offshore transfers came in. BVI, Zurich. Maya's breath caught. She's involved, she whispered. Not just ignorant. She's in on it. She pulled up public transaction records. Her hands shook as she searched. There it was. Clara Hale's name tied to a dormant trust account in the British Virgin Islands. At that exact moment, yes. Jackson opened his email. A message from his bank's internal compliance team blinked at him. Subject: suspicious access activity, internal transfer alert. He clicked. Clara had tried authorizing a $2.5 million transfer from a dormant reserve account. The system had stopped it in time. Jackson sank into his chair. The noose wasn't tightening around his company. It was already inside his home. Somewhere in the quiet night, 3 people lay sleepless. Jackson Hale, realizing his foundation was crumbling. Maya Williams, gripping pieces of a puzzle far too big for her 16 years. And Clara Hale, seated beside Derek Vaughn, in a black SUV, whispering he's starting to dig. To which Derek replied, calm as ever, then we bury him before he reaches the roots. It began with an email. Oh, no subject, no sender, just a single audio file. Jackson hesitated, staring at his office ceiling long after the staff had gone home. The silence felt heavy. Like the walls themselves held their breath. He clicked play. Clara's voice came first, smooth and measured. He won't question it, not if I press at the right time. Then Vaughn's low drawl followed. And if he does, we remind him what he has to lose. Jackson froze. He played it again and again. 3 times before the weight of it fully landed. Something inside him broke, not loudly, not visibly, but irrevocably. He forwarded the file to his private attorney. Then he leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling, not with confusion anymore, but with cold clarity. Clara wasn't a bystander. She was orchestrating it. Maya stood outside the massive bronze doors of the Harold Washington Library, clutching a folder and a flash drive Barnes had mailed that morning. Her fingers were numb not from cold, but from fear. Everything pointed in one direction now. Someone was trying to erase Hale investments. Inside, she found a computer terminal and keyed in Barnes's handwritten password. The files unfolded. 3 mergers, 3 destroyed companies, all tied to Derek Vaughn. Every one buried deep in metadata, traces of Clara Hale's digital credentials. She wasn't just complicit, she had been his partner all along. That evening, Maya made her way to Barnes's apartment to deliver physical copies. But when she arrived, the door stood ajar. Inside, silence. No lights, no sign of Robert Barnes. The apartment was eerily pristine, and there, on the kitchen counter, lay a single item on the kitchen table, sat a single envelope marked MW. Maya tore it open carefully. Inside were 2 items, a thumb drive and a yellow sticky note. They know. I'm helping you. Don't come back here. Find someone you trust, soon. Back in the city, Jackson Hale sat parked outside an abandoned courthouse. The building had been shuttered for years. No judges or clerks inside anymore, but he wasn't there for legal proceedings. He was waiting for Victoria Chenna, civil rights attorney and former prosecutor, renowned for taking on cases no one else dared touch. She appeared without announcement, her black wool coat sweeping behind her like a silent cloak of justice. Mr. Hale, she greeted, slipping smoothly into the passenger seat. You came to the right person? But this isn't just contract fraud. I know, Jackson replied grimly. You're facing organized financial subversion, maybe even racketeering. I have to protect my company, he said. And a girl who saw it all first. Victoria's brow arched. A girl? She's 16. Maya Williams. She caught it before any of us did. For the first time, Victoria's serious face broke into a faint smile. Then she may be your most valuable witness. The next morning, Maya returned to Hale Tower. Security had tightened. She wasn't on the visitor list, so she lingered outside, clutching a worn bag stuffed with evidence. Her fingers were cold, but she didn't move until she spotted a familiar face, a junior staffer she knew from late-night vacuuming shifts. He slowed as he passed, glanced both ways, and whispered, Mr. Hale said, if you ever came back, I should bring you straight up. Jackson saw her. Something in his hardened expression softened. He stood, extending a hand not like a CEO greeting an employee, but like a man confronting his own blind spots. I owe you more than an apology, he said. I owe you the truth. Maya looked him square in the eye, her voice steady. Then, let's get it out before someone else disappears. They sat in his private conference room, laptops and documents spread out like a battlefield map. Minutes later, Victoria arrived, giving Maya a single, approving nod. This is your war now, Victoria said. But with the right moves, we can win it before they even realize they're under attack. Maya nodded. Her nerves were taut but steady. For the first time, she wasn't fighting alone. The cracks weren't just splintering a marble facade, they were letting the truth seep through. The courtroom date hadn't been set yet. No subpoenas issued, no press conference announced. But the war had already begun. In Jackson's office, the walls no longer bore sleek awards or framed forecasts. Instead, whiteboards crowded every surface, scribbled with timelines, shell companies, account transfers, and names in red ink. At the center sat Maya Williams, a 16-year-old with a borrowed laptop and a folder of secrets. Victoria stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, speaking low and urgent. Jackson hunched over a spreadsheet, jaw tight, scanning for patterns. When Victoria ended her call, her tone sharpened. That was my contact at Justice. They're watching Vaughn quietly, but they need more to move. Maya slid a yellow file across the table. This came in last night, from Barnes before he vanished. Jackson opened it. Offshore account ledgers spilled out. 3 names leapt off the page. Clara Hale, Derek Vaughn, Ravencross Holdings. A shell company registered in B's. It's channeling payments quarterly from failed merger settlements. Victoria let out a low whistle. This isn't fraud. This is a long con, predatory, surgical. Jackson's face hardened, and it all started under my roof. That evening, Maya and her mother sat on the fire escape, city lights flickering below. Yellow taxis buzzed past, and faint music drifted up from nearby restaurant patios. Denise handed Maya a steaming mug of chamomile tea. Her hands trembled slightly. They called again, she murmured. Said if I don't stay quiet, they'll wipe your school records. Said they can make things vanish. Maya stared at the skyline. They already tried. You're just a kid, Maya. This isn't your fight. It became mine the second they used people like us to cover their tracks. Her tone was calm. Certain DEA. In that moment, Denise saw something unexpected. Not defiance, but purpose. A quiet resolve. Maya wasn't trying to prove herself. She was trying to make things right. The following night, Jackson walked into the Hale Foundation gala in a sharp black tuxedo, face drawn tight. The gala had been Clara's creation charity, flashing cameras, donors sipping champagne. Tonight, Jackson stepped to the microphone. Before we begin, he said, his voice cutting through the chatter, I want to speak not as a CEO, but as a man who's made mistakes. Clara froze near the bar, her hand tightening around her glass stem. Years ago, I thought building an empire meant trusting only the numbers. But numbers don't betray you. People do. A ripple of murmurs spread across the room. Eyes began sliding toward Clara. I've reopened every board document we've ever signed. And what I found, what one brave young woman uncovered, shook me to my core. Victoria, standing at the back, watched silently, arms folded. Jackson stepped away from the mic and exited before anyone could react. Later that night, Maya sat cross-legged on her bed, the city's blinking lights reflecting in her window. A folder lay open, filled with fresh emails. One message from Clara to Derek sliced through the others like a knife. He's starting to pull away. You know what to do. As Maya began transferring the data to a secure drive, her apartment lights flickered. Her laptop screen went black. Her phone buzzed. One message, unknown number. Stop digging, or we dig first. Her hands trembled, but she didn't shut down. She grabbed a Sharpie and scrawled 3 words on a clean page. Not backing down. This wasn't just about a company anymore. It had become a battleground. And the girl no one thought would be heard was turning into a voice too loud to ignore. By morning, the headlines hadn't yet broken, but the whispers had. In the financial district, rumors drifted between elevators and espresso bars. Hale Investments, under internal review, an anonymous whistleblower, frozen merger. Some said it was routine. Others smelled blood in the water. In his corner office, Jackson stared out at the skyline, his jaw set. I built this company from scratch, he muttered, and nearly handed it over to a ghost in a tailored suit. Victoria, seated across from him, tapped the B's account, rooting numbers. You didn't hand it over. You hesitated. That's what matters. She paused. But this isn't just business anymore. It's justice. Meanwhile, Clara Hale descended the sweeping staircase of their penthouse, navy silk dress gliding over the steps, as though nothing was unraveling. The housekeeper approached with a cream envelope. This was left in the mailbox. Clara tore it open. Inside was a single photograph: Jackson, Maya, and Victoria, leaning over documents, 3 signatures circled in red. Sticky note read, You're losing control. Clara didn't flinch. She pulled out her phone. Get me Derek Vaughn. That evening, at a private summit in the Four Seasons, Derek Vaughn strolled confidently among the city's elite. He clutched an expensive whiskey, flashing practiced smiles at investors. But tonight felt different. People still nodded, but their nods were shorter, smiles thinner. Some avoided his gaze. Others murmured in low voices as he passed. Jackson found Derek leaning casually near the balcony rail. Oh well, Derek drawled, his smile sharp. You've stirred quite the pot. Jackson didn't extend his hand. I didn't stir anything, he said flatly. I just stopped pretending I couldn't see. Derek leaned closer, his voice silky and deliberate. With this, you won't just bury me. You'll drag your wife's name through the mud. Your board will panic. Your stock will nosedive. Is that the legacy you want? Jackson's expression didn't waver. I'd rather lose a company than live a lie. Back at Maya's apartment, her mother hung up the phone slowly and turned toward her daughter. It was the school principal. She said in a hushed voice, Someone filed a complaint saying you've been emotionally disruptive on school grounds. And Maya blinked. I haven't even been to school this week. Denise's hands trembled faintly. They're trying to. shake you. You're making them nervous." Maya looked down at the stack of files in her lap. She didn't feel nervous. She felt prepared. By week's end, Victoria filed the first legal motion, a request for an injunction and an independent audit of Von Global. She also filed for whistleblower protection on behalf of Maya Williams. The media caught on by sunset. Breaking news: Hale Investments suspends merger pending legal review. Anonymous teen cited as key witness. Photos of Maya lifted from her school website circulated fast-cropped, reposted, retweeted. Some voices praised her courage. Others doubted her. A few hurled attacks. But none could ignore her. At dawn, the next morning, Jackson entered the boardroom, carrying a thick stack of documents. His executives were already seated, faces tight. With tension, "Should have seen this sooner," he began quietly. "But I let comfort blind me." He distributed the audits, emails, shell company reports, and one damning audio clip. Meeting every eye around the table, he said, "You have a choice. Help me clean house from the inside, or watch it burn from the outside." Silence held for a beat before, one by one, heads nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, in a quiet cafe near the Loop, Clara Hale sat across from Derek Vaughn again. Gone was the glitter of charm in her eyes. "He's not going quietly," she said. Derek's smirk was faint but cold. "Then maybe it's time we stop being quiet, too." He slid a black folder across the table. Inside was a list of names: judges, reporters, even a federal clerk. Clara closed it slowly. "We bury them," she said, but across the street. Unseen, Maya Williams watched from a city bus window. Her phone's camera recorded every frame. The game wasn't quiet anymore. The unraveling had only just begun. By Monday morning, Hale Investments was no longer a fortress. It was a battlefield. Internal servers were down for maintenance, though everyone knew better. Compliance teams worked through the night. Legal counsel whispered behind glass doors. HR flagged emails for keywords like offshore Vaughn, whistleblower, and Jackson Hale. In the center of it all, Jackson stood calm, clear-eyed, and unshaken at her penthouse. Clara Hale sat bathed in pale winter light, phone pressed to her ear. "They're coming for us," she whispered. "Derek's." The voice was steady on the other end. "Let them. Don't run. We counterattack." Clara's tone sharpened. "You told me the papers were buried?" "They were," Derek replied. "Someone dug them up." "You don't get it," Clara hissed. "It's not Jackson leading this. It's the girl. 16? And she's turning this whole damn tower inside out." There was a pause. Derek's voice dropped to a cold, dangerous register. "Then maybe it's time we remind everyone who really holds power." At school, Maya Williams kept her head down, but whispers followed her like a shadow. Half her classmates stared as if she were a ghost. The other half avoided her like a contagion. Muttered traitor. Others whispered hero. She ignored them all. But when she opened her locker, a folded note tumbled out. Carefully, she unfolded it. "We know where you live. Stay silent. Stay safe." Her fingers trembled for a moment, but only a moment. Shh. She tucked the note into her pocket, grabbed her books, and walked directly to the principal's office. She told him everything. By day's end, Victoria Chan had secured a protection order for Maya and her mother. That night, Jackson received a message from an unknown number. "She's not worth it." He stared at the words a long while before picking up the landline. "Victoria," he said when she answered. "Can you get federal eyes on this yet?" "They're watching," she replied. "They need someone willing to testify publicly." There was silence on the line. Then Jackson spoke, resolved. "Then I will." The next morning, the Chicago Tribune headline hit like a thunderclap. CEO exposes internal conspiracy. Teen whistleblower key to unraveling billion-dollar scheme. Maya's name wasn't revealed, but her story was everywhere in talk radio, across Twitter, splashed across morning television. At a press briefing, Jackson stood at a podium flanked by Victoria Chan and 2 federal agents. "I was blind," he admitted. Blind not just to fraud, but to courage. A 16-year-old girl saved this company from the inside out. A Thesney, a company that never saw her as more than her mother's uniform. He paused, letting the silence settle over the room. She saw what we refused to. From this day forward, we will see her. That afternoon, Maya returned home to find a crowd outside her apartment building. Neighbors, reporters, even strangers held handmade signs. We believe Maya. Truth has no age. She froze at the bottom step, stunned. Her mother gently took her hand. They're not here to hurt you, Denise said softly. They're here to thank you. But across town, high above the city in a glass-walled suite, Derek Vaughn sat in silence. On his tablet was a freeze frame of Maya stepping onto the witness platform. Clara Hale paced tight circles behind him. She's still a kid, Clara snapped. You really think they'll let her bring us down? Derek's voice was low, steel cold. Kids don't bring down empires. Shut the tablet with a snap. Symbols do. Rising, he strode toward the door. Let's break her before she becomes one. On the courthouse steps, flashbulbs fired like lightning under heavy gray clouds. Inside courtroom 1B, the air was thick with tension. Jackson Hale adjusted his tie and glanced back at the double doors. Victoria Chan stood beside him, reviewing notes. 2 rows back, Maya Williams sat quietly, her hair neatly braided, eyes burning with steady fire. Today was the first day of testimony. Across the aisle, Derek Vaughn sat with the calm air of a man convinced his wealth could erase anything. Beside him, Clara Hale was a picture of poise in her slate gray suit, her eyes hard, her mouth unsmiling. The judge entered. All rise. Victoria began with calculated precision. She didn't wield fire, she wielded facts. Contracts, dates, forensic audits, each delivered like a scalpel rather than a sword. One by one, she peeled back the layers of shell companies and forged authorizations that funneled corporate liabilities straight into Hale Investments. While Vaughn and Clara quietly siphoned profits offshore, Clara never once glanced at Jackson. Then came the moment the room had been holding its breath for. Victoria straightened. Your Honor, I'd like to call Maya Williams to the stand. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Reporters' pens flew. Furiously across their pads, Maya walked forward, not as a victim, not as a timid teenager, but as the first person in this towering building who dared to speak the truth. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore in, and took her seat. Victoria offered her a soft smile. Miss Williams, how did you first become involved in this case? Us voice was steady, firm. I was helping my mom on the 27th floor. She's part of the night cleaning crew. I saw the contract in the copy room. The signature at the bottom didn't look right. When I read the fine print, it didn't sound right either. Victoria nodded. What stood out to you? There was a clause buried deep, transferred all liability from Vaughn's firm to Mr. Hale's company. If things went wrong, only one party was going to pay the price. Leaning forward, Victoria asked, Why speak up? You were 16. No one asked you to read it. Maya turned her gaze first to Clara, then to Derek, and finally to the jurors. Because just because I clean your floors doesn't mean I don't see the dirt. The courtroom went utterly still. Even the judge's face shifted slightly. Clara's hands twitched. Derek didn't smile this time. Cross-examination hit hard. Vaughn's attorney fired off questions designed to unnerve her. Miss Williams, did you understand all the legal terminology in that contract? No, sir, Maya said evenly. But I understood enough to know someone was hiding something. You consider yourself an expert in business law? No, but I don't think you need a degree to recognize when someone's being set up to fail. The jury regarded her differently now, not just a girl, but the voice of every invisible worker ever told to stay quiet and know their place. After recess, Jackson took the stand. Victoria asked him a single question. What made you believe her? He paused, then said, My gut said she was right. But more than that, I remembered something I'd long forgotten. And what was that? He looked at Maya. That integrity doesn't depend on status. Sometimes the janitor's daughter sees the cracks before the board does. Then Clara Hale was called. The gallery collectively inhaled. She walked tall, poised, until the prosecution played the damning audio. If he questions it, remind him what he has to lose. Clara closed her eyes, hands folding in her lap. And for the first time during the trial, her voice faltered. "Didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I thought if I could just push the deal through, Jackson would never know." And when Maya exposed it, Victoria pressed. Clara's voice broke. "I wanted her gone because she saw everything I had worked so hard to bury." Outside, cameras swarmed like wolves. Maya slipped out a side door. Jackson caught up to her. "You didn't have to come," she said quietly. "I owed it to you," he replied. "To be the man you thought I was when you first walked into that boardroom?" She offered the faintest smile. "You're getting..." There, inside, Clara returned to her seat beside Vaughn. She didn't speak, but her silence was deafening. The empire was cracking. The jury had seen not just fraud, but betrayal of trust, of truth, people no one expected to speak. The next morning brought the verdict. The jury filed in, faces solemn. Maya sat between Victoria and her mother, clutching the hem of her skirt behind her. Jackson stood rigid, hands clasped. Across the aisle, Derek Vaughn's faint smirk lingered. Clara stared at the floor. The judge's gavel struck. On the count of conspiracy to commit corporate fraud, guilty. On the count of falsifying financial documents, guilty. On the count of obstruction and tampering with legal contracts, guilty. Each word landed like stone on glass. Decades of manipulation undone in seconds. Derek's smirk dissolved. Clara's eyes closed. The sentence came swiftly. 10 years in, federal prison for both defendants, no parole for the first 7. Maya finally exhaled. Outside, reporters yelled questions. Microphones jutted forward. "Maya, how does it feel to be the girl who saved a corporation?" "Mr. Hale, will you rebuild Hale Investments?" "Victoria, what's next for your young witness?" Maya answered only one. "What do you want people to remember from this case?" She paused, then looked into the nearest camera. "That truth doesn't depend on your title, and justice doesn't care how clean your shoes are." Investments didn't collapse, it transformed. Jackson Hale spearheaded a full restructure. Clara's name was erased from every board document. Vaughn's assets were frozen. Victoria became chief ethics counsel. Maya Williams was awarded a full scholarship. At a press conference inside the building she once cleaned, Jackson made the announcement. Today, Hale Investments establishes the Maya Williams Fellowship for young people with vision and courage. Maya didn't just save this company. She reminded us of who we are supposed to be. Applause thundered. Maya stood beside him, a blazer over her white blouse, her faint smile steady and sure. That evening, Jackson sat in his office. Maya stood across from him, holding a manila envelope. "I got my Columbia acceptance letter," she said, eyes shining. He smiled warmly. "You earned more than that. You've got a seat at any table you want now." She hesitated. "Do you regret any of it?" He turned to the glowing Chicago skyline. "I regret not seeing it sooner. But I don't regret the person who stood up when I didn't." She nodded and left the envelope on his desk. Days later, Clara Hale entered a federal detention center in Wisconsin. No statement, no appeal, just silence. Alone in her cell, her empire reduced to static on the news, she replayed the words that had sealed her fate. "Just because I clean your floors doesn't mean I don't see the dirt." In his office, Jackson placed Maya's envelope on a shelf. Beside his awards, next to it a plaque read, "Truth isn't loud, but it lasts." He leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. A girl had once pointed to a signature and changed everything. And now, from the ashes of deceit, a new foundation stood stronger, cleaner, and unshakably honest. The empire hadn't fallen. It had been rebuilt by the one they never saw coming.